All right. Welcome to our last PLC on Math Summer Slide. I am Marissa Franklin, the Math Instructional Coordinator here at the Office of Public Instruction. And this is meant to be an interactive PLC, so please feel free to jump in or ask questions either in the chat box or by unmuting yourself. If you're watching this afterwards, please make sure that you're thinking through the questions that we present, and you'll be asked to post those in a discussion forum afterwards. So to begin, what is Summer Slide? There's many studies, in particular pertaining to Math Summer Slide. In one study by Harris Cooper in 1996, he found out that on average, all students lose, regardless of income, 2.6 months of grade level equivalence in math education. A later study by Cooper as well found out that from 39 independent studies, he found out that on average, students lose about 1 month of instruction on standardized test scores that were given in the spring and in the fall. So while we might not know the exact average loss due to Summer Slide, we do know that there has been found some loss in math recall. So we're going to look into that. So summer vacations. Invisible Learning by John Haiti, he found out on average that this meta-analysis showed that students lost some achievement gains over the summer, having a scale of negative 0.09, which means that it's in that reverse effect outcomes. And the effects were slightly larger in mathematics. Actually, mathematics was 0.149, so you can imagine that a little bit further down here in that reverse effects for summer vacation. And also reading and language was negative 0.05, so a little bit less of a negative outcome. Compared to all other effects, these are minor indeed, but the middle class students appeared to gain on grade level equivalence reading recognition tests over the summer compared to low income students who had a negative effect. So while we found that summer vacation overall had a negative effect, it had a larger negative effect for students in low income communities. There was no moderating effects for gender or race found, but the negative effects for summer did increase with grade level. So as students got older, they found that there was even more detrimental effects of summer vacation. What type of math is lost? This was kind of interesting to think about, which leads me to the question of so we have Summer Slide or summer learning loss is more pronounced in mathematics than for reading. They found that the factual and procedural learning is lost at a greater extent than math concepts or problem solving in other basic conceptually based skills. And then similarly, they found that spelling loss was greater than reading comprehension loss. And this leads me to that question, right, of our teaching practices is if we know that our students are kind of losing their factual or recall over the summer, that memorization component, how can we actually initially teach students in a more conceptual manner or a problem-solving manner to help it stick? So that's something else to think about.
And Marissa, it's exactly what you said there for spelling and reading. Is as we're teaching reading, particularly in those primary grades and with struggling readers, we really want to make sure that we're not just breaking down to those small phonemic bits for them so that when they leave for summer, that's what kind of disappears for them, that we're still reinforcing with those reading comprehension strategies so that stays with them. And I think this just underscores the importance of that in our teaching for our students.
I totally agree. And while the studies for Cooper, his latest study was in 2003, he's kind of been the big leader in summer loss and looking at those research. The findings have been consistent, right? And those factual recalls it leads me to think, well, we've got to teach in a different way if our students are losing this information over the summer, or think about summer learning in a different way. So also think about who. So all students were found to kind of lose some math skills over the summer, about roughly equal to about a month's worth of learning. However, substantial economic differences were found for reading. On some measures, middle-class children showed gains in reading over the summer, but disadvantaged students showed loss. And this goes into that kind of faucet theory, right, of that there's so many resources that school provides for our students, all of our students, over the throughout the year, and then over the summer, right, many of our students in our middle class or upper income students don't feel the loss of other kind of services that are being provided, while our students of low-income students do feel that loss. So in addition to not having kind of a teacher in education every day, they're also losing those kind of basic services of, some of a school lunch and just other kind of services that they're used to. And so that might also increase the amount of learning loss for our low-income students over the summer. So I got really into a deep dark hole with this stuff and wanted to know why and where did where did our school year come from and all that good stuff. And it was actually pretty interesting, that article, The Case of the Summer Learning, and I'll have that linked for everyone. Kind of talks through the history of summer school, or why we have summers. It was in the late 19th century, they standardized the urban and the rural school calendars over a long summer break. So actually it was the urban schools that had a summer break, and it was the rural schools that had a winter break, because clearly harvest was not as big during that time, and for most of the states, right, they found that that was not the best time to be planting, and when there's snow on the ground, so they actually had a winter vacation. So what they decided is they decided to, of course, usually go with the urban decision here, and decided to go ahead and have a summer break. Well, there has been many school districts and states who have actually thought about changing this or shortening the summer, or kind of reorganizing the school year in a different way. State calendar laws and tourism lobbies have actually kind of prevented this from happening. It's really fascinating to think about. Of course, the tourism lobbies do not want summer to go away. Of course, they want that our people to be traveling and to be visiting their different locations. So that makes a lot of sense that they've also kind of prevented a potential change over the past 100 years. We also know, why is this happening? Right, parents are more likely to read to students when they're over the summer than maybe practice math skills. And practicing math skills is less intuitive, and it's more technical than reading maybe a reading practice or reading a book over the summer. So we're here to kind of discuss a few ideas of what can we do. This was the last piece of data that I found that was about the cumulative summer loss over many years. There's been some research also by this the Cooper man as well, that he found that over the years, right, it becomes more and more detrimental for students. And his argument was saying that with summer loss, and particularly to our students, our lower income students that see a larger summer loss every summer, maybe in kindergarten or first grade, it's not a big deal, but then over many, many, many years, we start that students that they don't catch up to that, and that can also kind of maybe potentially relate to lower test scores, lower performance in school, higher dropout rates. It was really interesting to start thinking about, okay, right, if it's just a little bit, maybe just a month lost every summer, but over 12 years, that's a whole year of learning, or more than a year. So our first quote here was from William White, and William White was actually one of the first researchers. He was a math teacher out of New Paltz, New York, and he decided to see the effects of the summer. And his sample size was quite small, but he tested 7 fourth graders and 8 seventh graders on math facts before and after, and found a decrease in their results. And he was the first guy to kind of looked into this effects of summer school. His results were stated above. And so my question is just, what do you think about this quote? Neglect for 3 months may blur the memory, but 3 months of an open air life may give an increased vitality that quickens the memory. Personally, I find this quote, yeah, I agree with it, right? It's confusing because you're like, well, they're losing math skills. I need to make sure that that they are keeping up their math skills so they don't fall behind next year on their next teacher and all that stuff. But you're also thinking about, what are memories that you have from your childhood? A lot of them are probably from summer, and from summer experiences that you had, or playing outside, or just being at home with your parents. And so that's a luxury that I had as a person growing up, that I could actually play outside. So we have to start thinking about also how has our society changed over the years, and are students able to have that luxury of playing outside in the summer, and are they able to have a parent at home throughout the summer, right? And in a lot of cases, the answer is no. So it's just something to think about. But got my brain thinking about that he was thinking openly about that. He found that his research showed that you do potentially lose a little bit of math, but maybe that's an okay thing. So something for us to kind of think about over this discussion. So next thing I kind of want to jump out and let people know about is the effects of summer school. This is again from John Haiti, and he looked into a couple different researchers about summer school and their effects. And he basically found out that the average of a 2.3, which basically says, right, it's in that teacher area effect, right? It's not in that zone of desired effects, but it's basically teacher dependent if summer school is going to work or not. They found things that if the summer school was geared towards a particular goal, that parents were involved, that outside teachers actually taught the school's curriculum, and that they weren't brand new teachers, that all those things led to a bigger positive effect. Students showed more success when food was offered at the summer program, and they generally found that higher gains were made in math than reading in summer school, and that more positive gains were for students of middle class students than for students in disadvantaged backgrounds. And this is all kind of research from his findings that he culminated in many different researches and kind of saw where did they end up. So while some teachers may say, right, the answer is summer school, it might not be. Or if it is, we really need to think carefully about who's running it, what is the program, and what is it going to look like. And I kind of do enjoy the fact that in general, math tends to be outperform reading in the summer. And again, that could be just the research here, and something to think about for sure. So Cooper found that summer learning programs have a significant positive effects, right, for students, the middle class students, more than our poor students. And there was one other finding from NuVision summer schools. They had a control group, and this was a really interesting study. They had a control group, and they looked into students who attended, they had a random selection of students to attend a 5 to 6 week academic enrichment summer school versus a similar students who were not. So these were all students who were interested. They allowed a certain group to attend the summer school and some that were not. And they did find an increase in performance scores from students who were in the summer program on the state math test. They actually found that after 2 summers, those students were performing significantly higher than the students who did not do either summer, equivalent to about a 20 to 25% of a year's learning math, and for math and ELA. So it's kind of an interesting idea here to see, is it worth having summer school, and again, it would have to be a very particular type of summer school to be effective. And then that study was an advocate for summer school. So a question now for you to think about and to discuss and post in the discussion forum would be, what summer opportunities does your school or do your school provide for math, or as a parent? And here I see that Christie has posted something here as in the chat box.
Yeah, I just had that thought when you had mentioned earlier, we're talking about math and how if they, not doing math for so much, where, they lose their time and it accumulates to a year of loss basically pretty rapidly, right? Or over a few years, like they're a year behind pretty quickly. And it's sort of the same here in reading, and you can see the cumulative effect of that reading really adds up over time. And so, and there's been a big push for this 20 minutes of reading for a lot of years, which I think may be why some of that summer slide we see not happening quite as much in reading, because there has been a big push for, there's library programs and incentives for reading in the summer to kind of counteract that. And it's, something that parents can do a little bit more easily as far as here's a book and sit down and read the book, rather than, thinking of those creative math situations in the house. We do try to do that at home a lot, but I'm just as guilty of, reading more than math. But I just think that this shows how that cumulative 20 minutes really adds up. And by, the end of 6th grade, there is 60 whole school days of missed reading by a student who doesn't do that 20 minutes of reading a day. I just think it's kind of powerful to think about that.
Yeah, no, I love this, and I think it's a great mathematics visual as well, which I love. But it's really interesting to think about and important, right? So, what is the equivalence of reading in math, right? What can that look like? And that's something that schools definitely struggle with. I know that I, for many years, passed out a packet over the summer. I was a high school math teacher, passed out a nice little packet with examples at the top, practice below. And it was like, all right, I've cleared my duties of summer school. But it was definitely not impactful. While some students, who worked really hard at it, I think a lot of students were confused or didn't get the help that they needed in order to complete it. So it didn't ever feel all that productive. And it didn't really feel like it would equate to not having like learning loss over the summer. So here's a couple other ideas that we've been thinking about here in Montana that I would love to share with you for ideas to kind of prevent summer slide. So highlight the math and everyday activities. This is also for parents. There's something that you can share with parents at your school, right? Reading short math stories together, and I have 2 links to kind of pretty cool websites for that. Play math games, right? Play Yahtzee, play other just different games that include mathematics or the calculations in there. It'd be a lot of fun. And find small ways to practice math at home. So the classic example is to set up a lemonade stand. But after, your student or your child might not be interested in that anymore, there's definitely other kind of different ways to practice that at home. So I've created a Google Doc here just with a list of ideas, and it also has ideas for reading. That everyone will be linked to. So I'll kind of go through these different ideas that we have for summer math slide, and it also has for reading as well, and lots of different programs that you can check out, and everything is free. Again, I would never promote anything that would cost money, so definitely some free opportunities. The first one is EdReady. There's actually a school in Billings is using this summer as a pilot. Their students have been using EdReady over the school year, and they decided that they would set up a goal for students to use EdReady over the summer. And if they met that goal on EdReady, then they were able to be entered in for an iPad. So something that this would have to be a school-based initiative and potentially have teachers checking it out, but parents also can sign their child up for EdReady and choose their practice path, which can be huge. This is also a great thing for students entering 9th grade who you think might not be totally ready for an Algebra 1, but you don't want them to miss the opportunity of taking Algebra 1 in their 9th grade year. This can be a great foundational skills place, and it's geared towards students in Montana. And also is Ryan Schreck, who runs it, is always willing to help and is ready to help at any point. So if you go to their website, he can go ahead and help you set that up either as a parent or as a school. I'm sure we'll report back with Billings progression and how it went for their school district, and if kids seem to like it and if parents seem to like it as well. Math Storytime. This is my favorite math story times. We've got Math Storytime, which is great books for children's ages 5 through 8. And then there's Math Before Bed is another cool book. Here we go. Math Before Bed is they're just 2 great free online stories that you can download and read to your students or your children before bed. This would be definitely something to promote with parents. This one was for our 5 through 8-year-olds, and so they're kind of childish but really super interesting, great books for our elementary school kids. And each of them have something to do with math, and they prompt parents to ask them. They also have the option for reading it aloud to students, which is pretty cool. So if a parent's not available, you could set them up with this and have it read out loud to them. So it's pretty great. Another one is this Math Before Bed, and they'll actually email you every night if you'd like to remind you, but they're just cool, activities asking, things like how many are there, and getting into discussion with your students. Could we just do one math problem before bed and thinking about that? And this is probably for our K through middle school students, and just kind of different questions to get kids thinking, just one problem before bed, kind of like you'd do a summer story. The Summer Math Challenge is open at the OPI website. I'll go into this in a little second, but it's run by Metametrics, and it's on our OPI website. If you are interested in having either families participate in this. And it's just a nice challenge. It's for grades K through 8, and they'll email you parents daily emails with ideas to practice math. On Fridays, they do a fact fluency thing, and you can either use a smartphone or an iPad, or obviously head to the library and use a computer there. But kind of cool ideas to try to get students engaged with math at a daily level. Khan Academy, I know that my school one year decided to set up a free Khan account and had our students use Khan Academy as summer practice, of course linked to our local library and see when they're open, but it's just definitely an idea. Again, this would probably be a school initiative because you need to select what task students would be working on, and then potentially monitoring it or having a prize for completing it, etc. I learned this today actually from Carrie Russell that EverFi has a summer math program. Again, if your school has been using EverFi this year, that might be a cool place to start. Again, it's like I think it's a little bit more fact fluency and all that good stuff, but definitely a place to start if your school is looking for a program to run and if you're using EverFi this year. One of my favorite websites is the U.S. Census. They have a statistics in school, and they send monthly emails with ideas for math educators and also for parents to kind of discuss with their students. It is super cool. I would highly recommend signing up for it. I always learn something new. And it's all based from real data, which I just totally love. There's activities, there's fun facts. I love looking at this fun facts and just pulling this up with students. Birth rates, comparing their states. They can compare, my favorite one is comparing how many theme parks there are in different states, and students love to just look at it. So there's lots of cool activities, and these are ones that their teachers can use or parents can use. They send out really fun little blogs or information that I always find fascinating because it's from the Census Bureau here. And then the last one are some cell phone apps. So this was a Utopia article for the 10 kind of different cell phone apps. These are probably not all free, so I don't totally recommend it, but for a parent who's looking for ideas of just fun cell phone apps that they can have on their phone for their students to play with, there's some cool ones here, and these were kind of vetted cell phone apps for math fluency and practice, and there's definitely some fun ones that are a little more interactive than just flashcards, right? They're pretty cool and interactive and game related. Here's just an idea of what the Summer Math Challenge looks like. So they send you an email every day. You can sign your student up by grade, and then they send activities for them, and so you'll get an email every day. And this was Fact Fluency Friday. They have just kind of some practice like that too. So that is it for today. I will definitely link the article that Christie shared with us as well about the reading loss, and potentially that's something you want to send home with parents, because I think that a lot of ways, right, our parents are our biggest allies in the summer, and we need to make sure that they're just as involved and invested in our summer learning. May that be through summer camps or being outside or going on adventures or just talking with your students about their, how their day was and all those good things, but also how can we weave in a few, some reading time as well as some math time or math activities into that day to keep our students engaged. And this is definitely an area that I think there'll be more research in over the next coming years. It'll be fascinating to see where we go with our summer schedule. I don't think we'll be losing our summers anytime soon, but it'll be interesting to see kind of where we go as a nation, and thinking about summer learning loss and what we can do to better prepare our students. So thank you again for attending the math webinar today. This is our last one, and we'll start up again next fall in potentially a different fashion. So look out for that, and I hope you have a wonderful summer and that you can use some of these resources with parents that you work with or with other fellow educators that are at your school. Have a great afternoon.